I don't want to hold this gentleman up because he's very kindly taken some time out of what's going to be a really busy day, a very busy schedule today. I am, as I told you, only talking about Brian O'Donovan, the RT Washington correspondent, and today is the inauguration of Joe Biden, and Trump finally packs the last bag, probably gone already, and leaves the White House. And Brian O'Donovan joins me by phone. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
So a busy day ahead for you then. You already got your place sorted? You're clearly in Washington waiting for the big inauguration, right?
Well, I'll talk you through exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm in the back of a taxi, navigating through the streets of Washington. And Neil, you know, you've been here before. It's a pretty easy city to navigate normally. It's all grid, numbers, letters, avenues, usually uncomplicated. But right now, it is an absolute nightmare. All the roads are closed. There's barricades up. You have armed troops on the streets, roadblocks. So it really is a challenge just to even get around the city to get where you need to get. We'll be based on the National Mall for the day, which is that massive, long, green strip of land in front of the Capitol building. We're very privileged. We're very lucky to be there because no members of the public are allowed there. It'll only be members of the media. You need a special pass to get in there. And instead of members of the public, you're going to have 200,000 flags planted in the ground representing the people that would be there under normal circumstances to watch the inauguration.
Amazing.
But nobody will be there this year.
So they are taking security very, very seriously today then, notwithstanding the events of 10 days ago. Am I right?
Yes. Well, so what would have happened, this would have been a very, very scaled back inauguration anyway, Neil, because of the coronavirus. They had pleaded with people not to come. It was the reverse of a big gathering normally. They said, please don't come to the city centre. There was no great plan to close the city centre, though. I think it was more an appeal. They were telling people, please don't come. They were saying, look, watch it on the TV. We don't want you gathering in big crowds because of the coronavirus. What happened then, of course, was we had the storming of the Capitol building on this day 2 weeks ago and those violent scenes. So the decision was made then to completely lock the city down and not take any chances. So normally you'd have these streets lined with people. Today they'll be lined with barbed wire fences, armed troops. And so much so, the concern of the security here, they've been actually carrying out extensive vetting of the 25,000 armed National Guard troops who are on duty. And through that vetting process, they've actually eliminated 12 of them and stood them down from duty.
Why?
For fear of any kind of an internal attack.
Why?
So it would have been a variety of reasons. Two of them in particular, they found links to extremist groups. There were others where they looked at text messages, they looked at emails, they went through everything and they thought, are these guys completely safe? Can we have them in the vicinity of the new president? Now, the Pentagon came out and said, look, chances are these guys are fine. We are just being extremely careful. So if anything was flagged, if anything strange came up in your past, in your browser history, in your emails,
they'll find it.
It would mean you'd be taken off duty for the day.
Okay, let's look at Trump then. Already, I don't know how many of the Irish papers you get to see on a daily basis, but already the worm has turned. For instance, the Independent say that Irish Taoiseach, more than one in the last 4 years, pandered to a bully. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, it's all good and well, I suppose, to say it after the fact. And, of course, this was always the way with President Trump, wasn't it? Whoever the Taoiseach of the time would be asked, we attend Kenny, Leo Varadkar and Leo Martin in recent weeks, will you invite him over? Will you meet him in the White House? And, of course, they had to say yes. Because, remember, Neil, he's the most powerful politician in the world. Yeah. And what the Irish politicians would always say, and it's a line that I agree with, is, look, we have to respect the office. We might have issues with the person, but we have to respect the office because the office will continue to exist long after that person leaves it. So you have to show the reverence, you have to show the respect. Ireland, as we always say, incredibly lucky to get that St. Patrick's Day access. I know some people are glib about it and they can be a bit cynical about it, but it is a big deal. We're a very, very small country. We get a level of access that is the envy of countries of our similar size. We get to see the president on a couple of occasions on the one day. We see the vice president. We go up to Capitol Hill to see the Speaker of the House. It's a level of access that had to be protected. It had to be looked after. And if that meant dealing with Donald Trump in the way that they did over the last 4 years, I think that's acceptable.
Now, we know that he's not going to the inauguration. He's been described as almost childlike, in constant need of praise by all of his staff. They came and went through the White House. We all know the history. He won't be there today, refusing to go. But is he finished politically now, do you think? Or what does the future hold for him? Have you given it any thought?
So I think immediately after the election, remember, Donald Trump lost, but he had a great election. He got 75 million votes, which was this huge vote. It was the biggest vote ever for a sitting president, the biggest vote ever for a Republican candidate, the biggest vote ever for any candidate. The only problem was Joe Biden got a bigger vote. So he has these 75 million votes in the back pocket. Where he made a mistake, I think, was pushing the election was stolen line too hard and pushing his supporters and spreading those falsehoods, spreading those lies about how this election was stolen and how there was rigged voting machines and how the whole thing was a fraud. And then it culminated in this storming of the Capitol building. And there is no doubt that he lost support as a result of that. And lots of the senior Republicans in his own party have criticised him for that. But I also have no doubt, Neil, that there are still millions of Donald Trump supporters out there who still love him, who still think he's great, and if they could, would vote for him again in 4 years' time.
Because he said there yesterday that this is only the start, didn't he? I mean, I don't know whether he means politically or whether he's going to start a television channel. Because I read somewhere at the weekend on the New York Post that the whole Trump family have had to leave Manhattan. They're decamping to Florida because it wouldn't even be safe for a Trump to walk down Fifth Avenue or a street in Manhattan.
But I suppose that's the divide here in the US, isn't it? That you would have a big city like New York or in LA, where at the best of times the Republican wouldn't do well anyway, and right now the Trump family certainly wouldn't be popular there, but they're very popular in half of Florida. They're very popular in Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and that's the divide here in the US.
Yeah.
So the situation that you're going to see, I think, would be, as Donald Trump said in that departing message last night, where he said the words, "The movement I've started is only just beginning." Now, a couple of issues here, Neil. Again, I come back to that attack on the Capitol building. Will that scupper his chances? It could scupper him in this way. If he is impeached by the Senate and found guilty on trial there, they could take a vote to block him from ever holding office again.
Gotcha.
So that could be the end of his political career. But as of now, I think, yes, he probably is eyeing potential runs in the future.
He didn't pardon himself, nor any of his family members. I suppose he wouldn't pardon himself because he wouldn't want to admit to having broken any laws, is it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of issues on that. Last night, very late last night, in the early hours of the morning, really, the White House issued a statement saying he was going to grant about 70 pardons and about 70 commutations of sentences. That's, to be fair, not unusual. That's not particular to Donald Trump. Presidents in their dying days always do those sort of commutations and pardons. What was interesting with Donald Trump's, I suppose, the most controversial name was Steve Bannon, his former senior advisor, and actually on the concept of maybe starting his own political party. Some would say that that's the reason he wants to keep Steve Bannon on side, that he might help him with that particular project. But yeah, could there be more pardons? There could be. Remember, he still has a few hours in office. And the interesting thing as well here, he actually doesn't have to publicly announce who he is going to pardon, so he could do pardons in private as well. But yes, as of now, it doesn't look like he's pardoning himself.
Poor old Joe Exotic didn't get a pardon. Everybody was said about that back here.
I know, and the only other big name that I knew, and maybe this shows my lack of knowledge, there was quite a few rappers, I believe, and music industry figures. Lil Wayne was one of the rappers that got pardoned, but yeah, definitely it was Steve Bannon was the big name that jumped out for everybody on the page.
And what of Biden then? Because we know that he has Irish roots. He was quoting James Joyce yesterday, and he was quoting Heaney for months and months. This is a good thing for us, I hope.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's always good to have that level of access, to have that level of interest. What struck me in all of this was immediately after his election was confirmed, a few days after the election itself, he did a raft of calls with world leaders, and Micheál Martin was right up there. He was up there in the middle of Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, and Emmanuel Macron. And, you know, we're a great country, Ireland, but we're nowhere near as big as those countries. So that was a sign that he was definitely prioritising Ireland. It will definitely be there. I think if there are further issues with Brexit, if there are any issues arising with the border, we have an ally there. We know, I asked him about it myself last November in Delaware. I shouted a question to him about Ireland, and he very much spoke about how he would be an advocate for the peace process and preventing the return of a hard border. So that can only be a good thing. But I think people need to temper expectations as well, Neil. He is the President of the United States. He is not the President of the world. He is not the President of Ireland. He will do what's best for America. He won't be as America first focused, certainly, as Donald Trump, but he will also have to put America first. But
unfortunately, the last few months, certainly the last few weeks, have kind of they've blotted the landscape with regards to the good that Trump did, because I'm not going to go into much detail with you in this, but there were positives, weren't there? You say about the huge vote, businesses seem to like him. He I don't know whether he drained the swamp, I don't know anything about that, but he certainly sorted out a lot of stuff for businesses and employment, and, you know, I suppose to some extent kickstarting the economy, didn't he?
He absolutely did. And remember, the US economy was doing incredibly well right up until the coronavirus hit. So this time last year, everything was looking great, and I thought he was going to be in. He cut people's taxes. He made promises, but remember here, conservatism, religion, pro-life, big issues always in the US, and he ticked all those boxes. He spoke about religion, he spoke about pro-life policies, he put conservative justices on the Supreme Court. He had some achievements in the Middle East with regard to Israel and their neighbours. There were certainly achievements, but I agree with you, it was a blot. Not just the storming of the Capitol. The storming of the Capitol, I think, was the culmination. That blot started to appear in the weeks before the election and the weeks after the election, where he started spreading these falsehoods about a stolen election and basically selling up to his supporters of this rigged election that never happened.
Brian, what an incredible time for you as a journalist to be working out of Washington in such momentous historic times. There's you, there is of course Donny O'Sullivan at CNN, who stole a lot of the limelight. Well, he was certainly very popular during the last few weeks. Do you know him? Do you hang out with him? Are you in close contact with him?
I had spoken to Donny once before all of this, a couple of months back, for a podcast. I interviewed him for my podcast, States of Mind. Great guy, funny guy. And then I have met him, since. And we have promised a pint to each other when all of this quietens down. If we can find an open bar, Washington, very like Cork and Ireland at the moment, Neil, everything's pretty much closed for coronavirus.
Have you met a lot of Irish people and Cork people, either politically or... There seems to be a lot of Irish in media. I mean, there's you, there's Donny, Samantha Barry is flying at Glamour magazine. We're well represented, aren't we?
Can I tell you my Samantha Barry fun fact? We were in the same school together. We both went to Ballincollig Community School, and we both were in sixth year together. And our graduation, this is a good story for you, Neil. The graduation mass, they said they wanted someone to deliver the end address, and Samantha and I both wanted to end up in the media and the whole realm of public speaking, so we both volunteered and we split the final speech on our graduation mass in Ballincollig Community School back in 1999. There I am showing my age. Actually, we're still, I've showed Samantha Barry's age. I'm probably in trouble now.
That's where it all started. And meanwhile, I know that you're aware of Tig Hickey's sketch. You aware of that?
Oh, I am indeed. I've seen them. Yeah, I've liked the posts. I've retweeted them. They're funny. I think he's good. He's a good guy. But you know you've made it when you start getting taken off by the impersonators. And I think Oliver Callan and Mario Rosenstock have done me as well.
How do you feel about that?
I will give Tig... I think it's hilarious. It's great. It's flattery. I do like Tig's best because we have the same hairstyle. He looks the most like me, I guess. So he probably takes the box closest.
Just fine. He asked me to ask you if you would be okay with him interviewing you know what I mean? As you.
Go for it. Yes. Sounds like fun.
So on a quiet day when all this is over, can we make that happen? It would be a bit of a laugh, and I think everybody would love it.
Absolutely. I think it'd be great fun. I think
so it would be.
Particularly like this Christmas sketch where he was giving out about me getting quality streets from the auntie, which I would agree with. But yeah, it was funny.
So it would be Brian O'Donovan interviews Brian O'Donovan, if you like.
Perfect. Sounds like fun.
All right, I'll let you get on. I do appreciate you taking the time out. Undoubtedly, we'll see you on TV. What time is all this kicking off?
So the inauguration itself, the actual inauguration will kick off at 12 noon Eastern time, which is 5 p.m. US time, but RTE's coverage, Katrina Perry's hosting from Dublin. I'll be doing my stuff from the capital, and that's going to happen at 3:30 on RTE1. It all kicks off.
All right. Break a leg, kid. Good to catch up. Thanks for taking the call. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil. Thank you.
Brian O'Donovan at Washington, RT Washington correspondent. So watch this space. We will make it happen. Brian interviews Brian. That should be a lot of fun. And we'll pick up on that when it happens at a quieter time, when the dust settles after the inauguration. So maybe a week or so we'll make it happen.